So before I introduce Mr. Rolland, I just want to talk about the significance of programs like this, bullying prevention, which is, I would say, a national concern and a national challenge for schools. And we'll get into a little bit of that after Mr. Rolland finishes his presentation. We're going to talk about a school response and what parents and community members who report bullying, the mechanism that we have in place in Pennridge, and what a school investigation looks like. So we'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. Mr. Rolland is currently employed by the Bucks County Schools Intermediate Unit in Doylestown. He is the Prevention and Federal Program Manager. He is responsible for working with school administrators and teachers to support, develop, and implement prevention programs and services in the area of violence prevention, bullying prevention, ATOD, which is alcohol, tobacco, and drugs, and peer leadership programs throughout Bucks County schools. Mr. Rolland is a certified OVEUS bullying prevention trainer. This is a nationally recognized approach to bullying prevention. Mr. Rolland is also the Federal Programs Manager, where he oversees federal programming for Title I neglected and delinquent facilities throughout Bucks County. Mr. Rolland earned his bachelor's degree in health sciences at Gwinnett Mercy University and his master's degree in education from Eastern University. He completed his postgraduate educational leadership program at St. Joe's. He is a former health teacher and school principal. Please help me in welcoming Mr. Rolland to Pennridge.
All right, thank you. I didn't know you were going to read that, but thanks for doing that. You know, when Ernie said that this is a national concern, I'll tell you that this is actually an international concern. And I say that because a few years ago, our office got all this new video equipment, right? And they wanted to test out this video equipment. So we connected with a school out in South Africa just to check out this video equipment. And the principal comes in, he's this cute little guy, and he comes out and they're asking him questions, And I said, I have a question. Yeah. Do you guys deal with bullying in your school? And what do you think he said? Yeah, of course. Yeah. There's a lot of bullying in our school. So this is not just a national concern, but it's international. What I want to share tonight is really based on a lot of research that comes from. I was trained in the OVEUS bullying prevention program, which is a real comprehensive, and I'll just take pieces of that to present to you tonight. But it's research, so it's not really my thought or my feeling or my vibe. It's really based on a lot of research, and I want to share that with you. But I always want to present and begin by saying that we all have our preconceived notions of bullying, right? My guess is that every one of us here, myself included, probably bullied somebody in our life. My guess is that every one of us here, including myself, was probably a victim of bully at some point in our life, whether it was a friend or a brother or a sister. And here we are. Life is good. We're happy. So the question is, so why so much media attention? What's the big deal? Well, people have a lot of preconceived notion, and I've heard of those. And frankly, I want to tell you that I respect those, right? I'm not here to tell you how to believe. People say, that's all right, it's just boys being boys. What's the big deal, right? It's not a big deal. Or it's a rite of passage. That's what happens when you're in middle school. You get picked on, and I don't know, it builds character, right? What's the big deal? Or it happened when I was a kid, and I'm fine, so what's the big deal? You know, there's just way too much fuss about this. All this stuff in the media, it's way too much fuss. Or it's all right, it's no big deal, it builds character. So that I may have had some of those thoughts myself. Maybe you had those thoughts. Maybe you still have those thoughts. I think what I would say to that is, there's this great quote that I got from an educational publisher called Hazelton, and they do a lot of books on violence prevention and bullying prevention. And I love this quote, and I'm reminded of this, is that when we minimize bullying in childhood, we normalize violent behavior. So I want to start by just kind of setting that as the groundwork for our talk today. So when you think about the word bullying, you know, like what comes to your mind? Does this come to your mind? Nobody know who that kid is? You know who that kid is? Farkas. I think it's from a Christmas Story, right? We all know that bully, right? And everybody cheers when the bully finally gets it at the end, right? The little kid finally gets mad at him. Wah! He attacks him, he beats him up. You're like, yeah, bully finally got it. Can that sweet girl be a bully? There's no way that sweet, innocent daddy's girl can be a bully, is there? That's my niece. She gave me permission to use that. What I want to start with is a definition of bullying. I share this definition with students. I share it with principals and administrators. I share it with teachers. I share it with parents. I think it's important to understand a definition that everybody says, yes, I agree, that's what this is, okay? Here's the definition according to the research. It says it's aggressive behavior that intends, and I highlighted the word intends, that you're trying to hurt somebody, right? You're intending to cause distress or harm. It's repetitive, meaning I might say something mean to you and you say, hey, I didn't like that. And I'm like, all right, I didn't know I offended you. And you don't do it again, so it's not really bullying, but it's repetitive. And then the other thing is this, what we call this impower of balance. And this imbalance of power, I'm sorry, I said it backwards, imbalance of power is not necessarily a big kid picking on a little kid. It could be that. But when we talk about power, we're talking about maybe somebody's more popular than the other, right? We know how important that is in school. Maybe somebody comes from a wealthy family. Maybe somebody comes from a poor family. Maybe somebody is real athletic. Maybe somebody's real smart. Maybe somebody's not as athletic, not as smart, whatever. But there's this imbalance of power. And they actually want us to refer to it as peer abuse. I don't know about you, when I hear that word abuse, I think of a pretty strong word, right? Like I think, wow, I'm not sure that I'd like to call it that, abuse. The reality is that's how they want us to refer to it. And they refer to it such that, I love to give this example. One of the things that the Oveus program does is they have questionnaires, right? And they do these questionnaires and they have kids fill out a questionnaire about if you've been bullying and what type of bullying it was and where it happened, blah, 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 and all this information. And when I went to this training, they said, it's also available in Spanish. And I'm like, hey, I speak Spanish. I said, can I see the Spanish version? Right? I was just curious, so I wanted to check it out. They're like, sure. So they gave me the Spanish version. This is the Spanish version. I don't know if anybody here speaks Spanish or not, but there's no word for bullying in Spanish. There's no word for bullying in Spanish. So the word they use in Spanish to call bullying is abusado. What do you think abusado means? It sounds like it. Abuse, that's exactly what it means. It says here, in the last 30 days, have you been abusado, abused? And I was sitting in that training, and I raised my hand. I said, do you realize what this survey is saying? It's asking boys and girls in the last 30 days, have they been abused by their peers? I said, do you realize that's what they're saying? And they were like, yeah, that's how we want to refer this. This is abuse. It's peer abuse. So when you hear that term, and it shocked you a little bit, it's okay. It shocked me too. But that's how they want us to refer to this, right? They want us to say, we want teachers and staff and parents to really take this serious. And if they think of abuse, they might really pay attention to us, right? So you'll hear that a lot. Talk about the different types of bullying, and you've probably heard most of them, right? There's physical bullying, of course, hurting somebody with your hand, or physically putting your hands on somebody. There's this emotional bullying where you don't touch them, and you might not even say anything to them, but you just bully them, like maybe with your actions, or you might point to them and kind of do one of these, like, I'm going to get you, you know. It's emotional bullying, messing with somebody's head just to hurt them. We know what verbal bullying looks like. We're using your words. Relational bullying, wow, there's whole conferences on relational bullying. They call it female relational aggression. So here's what it is. It's a lot of times ladies. It happens in boys too, but it's a lot of times ladies. It's two friends that are in relationship together, right? So me and my man here, we're really good friends, and we hang out all the time. But every time the other guy comes to hang out with us, he starts taking a shot at me. He starts picking on me. He starts teasing me. He starts putting me down. And my friend over here says, Ron, why do you put up with that? And I say, it's okay. He's my friend. He doesn't mean it. He's my friend. It's about relationships, right? You're trying to mess with people's relationship. That's what's called relational bullying. Then there's this other thing that we see sometimes, and it's called deliberate exclusion. And that word deliberate is really important. You're deliberately for purposes of hurting somebody, you're excluding somebody. It's not the same as playing basketball, 3-on-3, and you come, you want to play, and we're like, no, you can't play. We already got 3-on-3. Is that bullying behavior? Of course not, right? No, you just can't play. But it's deliberate exclusion. Get out of here. Leave us alone. We don't want you. Go away. That's what it's referring to here. And of course, we know that's exploding with what we refer to as cyberbullying, and you know what that looks like, right? On the internet, on devices. So, why do they do it? Well, according to research, sometimes it's really students, they don't feel good about themselves, right? So they think that they can bully somebody else. Sometimes it's self-identifying. That's how they identify. I shared a story not too long ago that I was at a school I was talking to 7th graders about bullying. And there was a kid in the front row, he was this big tough kid, and as I'm talking about bullying, he looks up at me and goes, yeah, I'm the class bully here. And I said, really? He goes, yeah, I am. And I just walked over to him and I said, so what makes you a class bully? And he goes, because I tell people what to do and they do it. And the kid sitting next to me goes, it's true, he's right, he does whatever we say. And here's a kid who took that on as his identity. He took that on as his identity, self-identified. Sometimes it's because they're being bullied somewhere else and now they can be the bully, right? Here's another sad story, but this one's true. I have a nephew, my sister's son, he's on the spectrum, and when he was in 6th and 7th grade, he was bullied a lot. And when he got to 9th grade, guess what happened? He became a bully. And my sister would get a call from the school saying, your son Anthony is being a bully. And she's like, wait, he's what? That's impossible. There's no way he's a bully. He was bullied all his life. And it's that. Now all of a sudden he feels like he can be a bully because he was bullied for so long. Sadly enough, some people just enjoy violence and enjoy being mean. So this is research, and this is pretty recent research. There's this great psychologist named Jonathan Haidt. If you haven't heard from him, he does a lot of research on anxiety and social media. He talks a lot about bullying and anger. And this research suggests that students, a lot of times girls, bully each other to create a sense of belonging. Hey, we're bored and we just want to do something together, so let's go pick on somebody today. It's not that that person did anything wrong or that we don't necessarily dislike that person. It's just something to do. It's that second one. It's a third one. It creates a social glue. I get calls from schools pretty often saying, oh, we have this group of girls and they just get together and they're just mean to other people. They're not mean girls, but they're really being mean to other people. And again, it creates this social glue for them. And that's how they stay connected. They don't have the maturity to realize how they can hurt somebody else. They find their place by harassing or excluding those who don't fit in. So why do they do it? They know it can be hurtful, so why do they do it? Well, sadly enough, it's because of that. Because they have a brain. And you're probably like, what? They have a brain? Yeah, they have a brain. Let me tell you about your brain real quick. So we have this anatomy of our brain, right? We have this brain stem. When we're born, we have this brain stem in the back of our brain that goes down to our spinal cord. And when we're born, that's intact, and that's responsible for our life functions. It's the reason that we blink and breathe and swallow and do all those things. Without anybody having to teach us how to do that, we just do it because our brain stem is intact. If we were born with our brain stem not intact, we would die. So we're born that way. We have a brain stem. Then we have our cerebellum, which is your little brain, and that starts to get developed as you grow, right? When you're a baby, that's not developed yet. So what do? You cry, you pee, you poo. That's all you got, right? That's all you got. You just lay there. But as that starts to get developed, you develop coordination. You can stand up on your own. You take little steps. You recognize people. Oh, there's my dad. Oh, there's my mom. She's safe. Oh, there's my brother. He's cool. Ah, Santa Claus. I don't know who you are. Ah! It's their brain regulating, trying to make these connections. And then your cerebrum is the top part of our brain, right? Your cerebrum begins from the back to the front. Your occipital lobe here, it's responsible for your vision and your parietal lobes. Your corpus callosum is that part that connects your right brain to your left brain, helps decision making. So you've probably heard this before, but it's really important for you to grasp this. The last part of our brain to develop is your front lobe. So the kids who are in school, elementary school, middle school, high school, they do not have a fully developed frontal lobe yet. Well, that's okay. That's normal. That's what's supposed to happen. But think about what your front lobe is responsible for. It's responsible for self-control. Do teenagers typically have pretty good self-control? Right? For judgment? For emotional regulation? Can teenagers regulate their emotions pretty easily? This is what it looked like. Ah! Right? We see this all the time. We call it teenage drama. Save the drama for your mama, right? Too much drama. Friends in relationship. I love you too. I know, we're gonna be best friends forever. I know, right? Oh my God, I just love you so much. They offend you. I hate you, don't ever talk to me again. I can't stand you. The next day, you know, I was just kidding. You're my best friend. Are they faking that? No, that's very real. That's their brain trying to regulate their emotions, right? But because of that, they often do things with the thought of consequences. How many times have you heard your student, your kid, your child, and you say, that wasn't nice. Why'd you do that? Once. I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? I don't know. Happens all the time. One of the things that he said that I do is I work with young kids who made poor decisions and now they're at the detention center, which is a prison for kids. And I met a lot of really cool and nice kids in prison. And they say, oh, I did this thing. And I go, really? Why'd you do that? And they say, oh, no. You don't know. I don't know. It's because of that, without the thought of consequences. Sometimes as parents, I'm a parent, I have 2 adult children now, but when my kids were growing up, why would you do that? I don't know. I shouldn't have done that. I know, but why'd you do it? I don't know. Right? I'm sure you and I have done many things, and after we did it, we're like, well, that was dumb. Why did we do that? You don't have a fully developed brain, and that's why young kids get into trouble. Thrill-seeking without the thought of consequences. So when you think about a young person who's being hurtful and mean, and you say, hey, that was really hurtful, and the response is, I know, you made her sad. I don't care. It's because they don't have that ability to think about the forethought of consequences. Does it get them off the hook? What do you think? Does it get them off the hook? Not at all, right? No. The jail is full of young kids who said, I don't know why I did that. So they go before the judge. You think the judge says, well, your brain's not fully developed. It's all right. Don't worry about it. Of course not. Still responsible for their actions. So, you know, in life, there's excuses and there are reasons. So I want to be clear. I'm not giving them an excuse to be mean, but there is a reason that sometimes they do things that are uncharacteristic. The inability to have that forethought of consequences. So when we look at an overview, how schools handle bullying is really different in elementary school, in middle school, and high school. And I'm just going to really touch and give a brief overview of what it looks like in those. Because their approaches are different. The good news is that in elementary school, the bullying is not usually fighting. It's usually just teasing and picking on somebody. Maybe they're different. Oh, you look different than I do. Or you are a different color than me. Or you wear glasses. Or you have weird hair, right? Just differences. And sometimes it's exclusion. Leave us alone. We don't want you playing with us. Well, the good news is what still works in elementary school is what we all know as character education, right? Hopefully you do this at home. The teachers at elementary school do it. Be kind. Be nice to one another. Play fair. Play nice. All those things are referred to as character education. Be honest, be trustworthy, all those things, and that still works. It still works in elementary school. You teach kids what it means to be a good friend. You teach them how to respect one another, how to be kind to each other. That still works. In education, it's also important for schools to have a consistent policy in school and to really address it. Now, I've done talks to principals in school, and when I talk about talks, I always have a principal say, Ron, if I was going to handle every situation, every bullying situation in my school, that's all I would do all day long. And I say, yeah, you're right, you probably would. But it will only be for a couple days or maybe a couple weeks. But after a while, the students will be like, all right, I can't get away with this because I'm getting in trouble all the time. We all know when we were growing up in school, you knew that there were some teachers you can get away with something and other teachers that you couldn't. And some teachers like, I can't goof off in their class because they're really strict. Well, that's what I tell them. I say, you're right. It would be a revolving door for a while, but then kids would get the point that they're always getting in trouble. I do think it's important for schools to assess where it happens, what we refer to as hotspots. Like, is it happening in the cafeteria? Is it happening in a specific classroom? Is it happening on the bus? Like really try to pay attention to those and put more supervision in those spots. Research is telling us that there's two things that are really important when it comes to bullying prevention and addressing bullying. And one of it is support for the victim, meaning the person who's being picked on. And the next one is support for the reporter. I know when I was a teacher, I did a lot of silly things. And many times when somebody would come up to me and say, somebody's picking on somebody, I would go, oh, leave them alone. It's none of your business. That would be my answer. Well, I hope in the year 2025, we're not doing that anymore. I hope in the year 2025, we're saying, thank you for telling me. I'm glad you let me know. And we tell the reporter, you did the right thing by letting me know and to address it. And I'll get into that in a second. In middle school, it's a little bit different. It's what we refer to that female aggression. Anybody ever hear of Mean Girls? Right? We've all heard of that. That's actually a thing. It's actually a thing. It's not just a movie. It's not just a play. It's actually a thing where girls create a bond by being mean. Again, think about their brain and the inability for them to realize that that meanness really can hurt somebody and damage somebody's life. It's this male character, this thing that I told you about, this bullying, and sometimes the kid's like, yeah, I'm a tough guy. That's me. That's who I am, and that's how I want to be identified as. And that's part of their identity. Sometimes it's about differences, whether it's maybe you have a mental illness, maybe you're perceived as being gay, maybe you are gay, maybe you're a different color, maybe you come from different social background, socioeconomic background, but you're different. You're different. And we do know that in middle school it can be violent. So in middle school, we know what's most important thing in a middle school is their friends, right? Talk about what it means to be a good friend and how to help your friends when they're struggling. We do think it's important to increase supervision in some of these hotspots, and there are some programs where they get older students to mentor the younger students and help them make good decisions. Those seem to be pretty effective. And then for high school, the sad thing in high school is bullying is less, but if there is bullying, they turn into fights. I want to be clear that a fight and a conflict is different than bullying. So if I'm walking down the hallway, and this happens a lot, if I'm walking down the hallway, and this guy's walking the aisle, say, and we bump shoulders, and he pushes me, and I push him back, and he's like, come on, man. You want to do this? And I'm like, yeah, let's go, man. We'll fight right here. Boom, 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 and we're on the ground fighting. Is that bullying behavior? Is that bullying? No, it's a fight. It's conflict. It's not nice, but it's not bullying behavior. Bullying behavior, think about those three things. It's about a balance of power. It's repetitive, and it's intended to hurt. It can be about intimidation. Do you think there's gangs in Bucks County? Yeah, I hate to tell you this, but there's gangs in Bucks County, and sometimes some of the fights and bullying can be gang-related. It can be aggressiveness from sports. It can be a student's current identity, or like who they came from a school where they were the tough guy at their school, or maybe they were the tough guy in the middle school. And we have this character identity, which is the tough guy in school. There are things that schools have to consider. One of the things I really want to point out here is that bottom bullet, is that students may need help and support, not just discipline. I know when I was a principal, I would get many calls from parents that say, what are you going to do? I want to make sure this kid gets in trouble. This kid's bullying my kid, and I want to make sure he gets in trouble. And I think it's important for you and everybody to understand that sometimes it's not about discipline, it's about that student is going through something, and we need to help that student. That student might need support, not just discipline. I'm not saying you don't discipline it, but it's not just about disciplining, it's actually that that student may be going through something. Could be drugs and alcohol in the student, could be drugs and alcohol at home, it could be a mental health diagnosis. We know there's a high incidence of military kids whose parents or father figures are, maybe their father figure treated. A lot of different reasons that maybe the student just needs support. They don't necessarily need to be suspended or kicked out of school. Here's the other thing is that the research says that it's different. Boys, bullying is generally physical, meaning that I'm afraid I'm going to get hurt, right? I'm afraid that this guy's going to hit me, hurt me, physically hurt me. Where in girls, it's not about that. It's more about, I'm afraid they're going to damage my relationships. They're going to spread rumors about me, or they're going to tell my friends not to talk to me. So in girls, bullying is generally about damaging their other relationships by spreading rumors or lies. But we know now there's a big thing about taking pictures and doctoring pictures to make it look different. Wow. Are you ready for the $1 million question? Here's a question that I actually want to pose. I'm going to stand up here because I'm actually going to pose this question. And I actually want you to respond. Can we prevent bullying? I love asking these questions when I have a room full of teachers and administrators. I love asking this question when I have a room full of students. I love asking this question when I have a room full of parents and community members. So I want you to be courageous. There's no right or wrong answer. Raise your hand if you think we can prevent bullying. One courageous. Oh, two. Okay. Okay, put your hands down. Raise your hand if you do not think we can prevent bullying. Thank you for being courageous. It's pretty close, 50-50. That's usually how it is. It's 50-50. So I'm going to challenge both of you. I don't know what you raised your hand, but if you raised your hand and said that we can prevent bullying, then why does it happen in every single school? Why does every single school deal with it? Why does it happen in South Africa? Why does it happen in Ridge School District? Why does it happen in Central Bucks School District? Why did it happen in North Penn School District? If it can be prevented, then why does it happen everywhere? All right. Let's pretend she said it cannot be prevented. Well, if it can't be prevented, Alicia, then let's just let the kids do whatever they want to do. We can't prevent it. What are we doing here? Let's all go home. We can't prevent it. It's impossible. You see how complicated this issue is? Both are right. There's no way. Bullying is about behavior. There is no way that a principal or a teacher or a counselor can stop her from saying something mean to him at any given moment. It's impossible. We have no idea. She could right now turn around and punch him in the face. I can't stop that. Do it just for fun. It's about behavior. I have no way to control behavior. However, schools do have a responsibility to create an environment where we pay attention to it, where we talk to kids about it, where when we see it, we address it, we discipline it, we tell kids it's not good behavior, it's not acceptable here at this school. So in response to that question, it's both. So here's what Clemson University says. Research teaches us that bullying happens in a multifaceted approach. It's about the home. It's about the school. It's about the community. There's 3 typical components. There's the bully, and there's this victim. And I don't even like to use the word bully. They're telling us to get away from using that word. They want us to say the student who bullies. Because of what I just said, some students love that word, and yep, I'm the bully, and I want to be called the bully, and that's who my identity is. So I use that word sometimes when I'm doing talks, but if you're a teacher, an administrator, or even a parent, I would encourage you to say student who bullies, instead of labeling a student the bully, okay? Student, bully, victim, and who else? So research is really, really clear. I love to talk to students because here's what I tell students. Pretend you're all 6th and 7th graders. Here's what I tell students. You know, boys and girls, your school wants to make sure that bullying doesn't happen in this school. So they do a lot of things. They do things like they hang posters throughout the wall that says, bully-free zone. We will not bully one another. I think it's a great idea. Schools should do that. But does that prevent bullying in school? And what do they say? No. I go, no, you're right, it doesn't. And then I say, yeah, schools do things like they have rules and regulation that if you get caught bullying somebody, you stay in from recess, maybe you get a detention, maybe you call your parents. I think it's a great idea. Schools should have rules and policy in place. But does that prevent bullying in school? And what do they say? No. I go, you're right, it doesn't. Sometimes school will invite speakers to come in, like Mr. Ron. He'll come in and he'll talk to boys and girls and say, bullying is not a good idea. Please be nice to one another. He'll do his whole speech. He'll do this beautiful assembly. He'll tell cute jokes. But does that change bullying behavior in school? And they go, no. I go, you're right, it doesn't. Research says that one thing is really clear, how to change bullying behavior. And I walk around, I go, and it's you, and it's you, and it's you. And I deliberately point to every student who's sitting in there, because the student said that the most proven effective strategy is empowering bystanders. And you may have heard that before, empowering bystanders. But what that's trying to say, and I'm going to be really straight up about it, you can't tell a bully, stop it, it's not nice, because you know what they say? I know it's not nice. That's why I do it. I know. That doesn't help. You can't tell a victim, well, then just stay away from the bully. Just walk down the other hallway. Just ignore him. What kind of support does that give a victim? None. So the best that we can do is empower those who are around him and say, when you see your friend being bullied, help them, support them, help them get out of that situation. Empowering bystanders. It's supporting, it's encouraging students to stick up for one another. When I share that with students, a light bulb goes off in their head and like, he's empowering me to do something about it. And trust me, I'm not suggesting that they stick up to the bully and say, hey, knock it off right now. That's not at all what I'm suggesting. If they can, that's cool. What I'm suggesting is that as a group that they come together and say, hey, leave him alone or leave her alone. Or he didn't do nothing to you, knock it off. Or maybe in a situation, just get the student out of the situation, that they encourage students to stick up for one another. So our conversations should be different. I know when I was a parent, and my son or daughter said, hey, somebody's being bullied. This was my response. They are? That's a shame. Stay out of it. It's none of your business. Maybe you've said that. They're really encouraging us to give a different response. You say, I'm really sorry to hear that. What did you do to support them? Hey, my friend Billy's got bullied today. Oh, really? I'm sorry to hear that. What did you do to help bully? And they might just say, I didn't. Say, okay, well, did you try to get Billy out of that situation? Did you let the teacher know? Did you find another friend and say, hey, together, let's go. Let's go support him. The other thing is it's important, and this is for all of us, not just as teachers and parents, but as human beings, is to raise our awareness that it's not normal, that it's not acceptable, that it's not okay, that we care. So when a student comes to us and say, hey, I was being bullied or my friend was being bullied, that we say, thanks for letting me know. It's important that you tell me because we want to make sure that this is a safe environment for everybody. So you did a good thing. Thank you for letting me know. It's not okay. And promote caring and talk to school and staff members because as I said before, the student might not just need punishment, he might need some support. We do want to encourage our young people to have some good coping skills and to be able to stick up for themselves and stick up for one another when they can. This is important also. You want to be conscious of your remarks that you make. I do that. I have to do that myself, and I have to remember, even if I'm just kidding, if I'm making a joke or a remark, and it might be racial or some kind of thing that's inappropriate, I have grandkids now. My grandkids are listening and watching that. So be careful how we do that. We want to honor and respect differences. They're watching how you resolve conflict. And then I encourage you, as a parent, to use real-life situations on how to solve conflict. You guys ever see that show? I don't know if it's still on TV. It was What Would You Do, right? And they would give you a scenario. They would show a scenario. I always remember one of this scenario of this little girl walking down the street, and this actor, although nobody knew he was an actor, grabs her and he starts pulling her, and she's like, "You're not my daddy, leave me alone." And if you ever saw that episode, people are walking by and like, "Oh, that's kind of weird." He just kind of kept walking and kept walking. And then finally this guy comes out of nowhere and he's like, "Yo, is he your father or not?" She's like, "No, he's not." He's like, "Yo, man, leave her alone. What's going on here?" And all of a sudden the cameramen come out with their cameras. "All right, we got you on camera. What a great thing." Dream. But that's what I to use real life situations. So I'll give you my real life situation. This happened a while ago. I'm at Dunkin' Donuts ordering a cup of coffee, and there's a guy in front of me. Do you think there's such a thing as adult bully? Yeah, I did too, right? So there was an adult bully in front of me. And the person behind the counter looked like she was from another country. She was wearing a hijab, and she had a head covering hijab, and she had an accent. And the guy goes, "Yeah, give me a cup of coffee. I want a cup of donuts, a chocolate donut." And she said, "Excuse me, sir, could you please slow down? I don't understand what you're saying." And he goes, "What's the matter, lady? Don't you speak English? Is anybody back there speak English? Get somebody in here who understands English. I just want to get a cup of coffee and a donut. What's going on?" And he's being really mean and hurtful to her. And he gets his order across, and then he walks down to wait for his coffee. So what's my role? What do I do? What should I do? I'm telling kids to be a bystander, to be an upstander. Is it my job to go beat up that guy? Is that my job? Is that my role? What do you think? Should I go beat up that guy? It's not my job. I don't know who he is. Maybe he's violent. Maybe he's tougher than me. So what I did was, when I got to there, I looked at her and I said, "Hey, I'm really sorry that you had to deal with that. I'm sorry that you went through that." And the guy heard me and he looked over and he says, "Hey, I wasn't talking to you." And I said, "That's all right. I'm not you either, man." And I looked at the lady. I said, "I'm really sorry. Are you okay?" She goes, "Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you for checking." All right. That's the best I could do. So what I'm telling you is that we're encouraging students to help one another. It could be just as basic as offering support to the student who's being a victim of somebody. So try to use those real life situations when you get a chance to be what we refer to as an upstander. I saw this quote once. I thought it kind of spoke to me. The easiest way to make sure your kids aren't the kind of kids who make fun of others in school is to be a parent who doesn't make fun of others at home. I'm not sure if that resonates with you or not. If it doesn't, it's okay. If it does, take that one in for a sec. So I'm starting to wrap things up because I'm running out of time, but I always like to end with a role play that I do with students. And I want to do it tonight, just as a group. It only takes about 5 minutes. It's a real quick one. And what it is we're going to set up a scenario, and it's a real powerful scenario that I think will give a really good example of how we can support one another. So I need about 5 volunteers to help me read something. Can I get a couple of people to just volunteer? You can stay where you are. Oh, thank you. Actually, come on up here so we can. I can put the mic in your face and you can hear. So I have one. Look at everybody. Nobody's making eye contact with me because they don't want me to hand them a card. Can I get somebody else to just be real? Thank you. I got you. Somebody else. You just have to reach them. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Come on up here. Thank you. Quick. I have 2 more. Hey, don't just for that, Ernie, thank you. I appreciate you. All right, I have 1 more who's my good friend over here. And I have 2 more. I'll do 1. So I just have 1 more. Thank you. Come up here. All right, so just come up here real quick. We're going to do this quick scenario. And I want you to stand right here in the letter of your card, A, B, C, D, E, F, and then I'll be G. And what we are is, there's a little script, like just 2 or 3 second script on the back of your card. When I call on you, I'm going to ask you just to read what it says there. Oh yeah, I have another one. I want to be this one. So you, G, thank you. Yeah, I do. So my name is Ron. I think somewhere it says put in that person's name and it's Ron. You can call me Ron, okay? So this is what it looks like, and I want you to follow along this little situation, okay? So I'm the student who's being bullied. So I'm going to tell you what's in my head. Oh no, here they come again. What are they going to say now? I wish I could just disappear. This is too hard for me. Man, I hate school. So we have somebody called, let me see what your card says, the student who bullies.
I think Ron is so stupid. I was making fun of his clothes. I said something like, "Hey, you loser, where'd you get those cool clothes, the loser? The loser store?"
Good job. So here I am minding my own business, and somebody decides to take a shot at me. Hey, loser, where'd you get those cool clothes? The loser store? And this person is A. They're known as the student who bullies. And then we have student B. Tell us what you're reading.
Well, Ron really isn't very cool. I agree with you. After things got started, I probably said, "Yeah, what's your problem, geek?"
So here's somebody who's a follower of this bully. And then we have somebody that's called a supporter. Tell us what you're thinking, supporter.
Oh, I really like, I don't know your name. What's your name?
Leah.
I really like Leah. They're so cool. I don't usually say anything when they pick on people, but I'm laughing and letting others know what's going on so they get to laugh too.
So he's a supporter. He's not supporting the bully, but he's kind of taking an active part. Yeah, this is kind of funny. Ha ha ha. And then we have what's called a passive supporter. It's a passive supporter. Tell us what you're thinking.
Well, I think it's funny too. I try to seem innocent enough. I really don't want to get into trouble. I may let the guys know later what happened. Yeah, Ron is kind of goofy. I mean, just look at him.
I'm just kidding. So there's a passive supporter. He likes the bullies. He's all friends with them. Then we have what's called a disengaged onlooker. Tell us what you're thinking.
Hey, this is none of my business. I try not to even notice. And when I do, I pretend not to see it. The less attention I get from those people, the better.
So not taking part in the bully. It's just like, hey, none of my business. I don't care. None of my attention. And then we have a possible defender. Tell me what you're thinking.
This is making me sick. Those kids have no right to do those things. That poor kid Ron did nothing to deserve that. But I really can't say anything. I don't want to be the next person to be bullied. Besides, what could I do anyway?
That's the possible defender. And then finally, we have a defender. Tell us what you're thinking.
I can't take it anymore. I just have to do something. But what should I do? Maybe talk to him later and say I was sorry it happened. I might even go over there right now.
Thank you. Great actor. So before you sit down, I want you to think about, when I said think about a situation, you don't have to share it with anybody, but I want you to think about that situation in your head where either you were a victim or you were a bully or maybe you just saw it happen. And I want you to think about which one of these were you? Which one of these were you? So I'll share with you, when I grew up in Lanesville, Pennsylvania. There was only 2 Puerto Rican families in all of Lanesville, mine and my cousins. That's it, when I grew up in the 60s. So I knew that I looked very different than everybody else in my class, and this is who I was. I was this person right here. When I'd see bullying happen, I'd be like, I don't care, it's none of my business. As long as they're not picking on me, I'm good to go. I'm fine. What I want to tell you is that every one of these individuals has the ability to make the bullying better or worse. There's no in between. So let's start. Make it better or worse? Worse, of course, right? She make it better or worse? Worse, of course. Make it better or worse? Worse. How about a passive supporter? Made it better or worse? Worse. How about this person? Made it better or worse? Worse? But they didn't do anything. That's why they made it worse. How about this person? It's making me sick. I hate to see this, but I don't know what to do. Did they make it better or worse? Do you realize that every one of these made it worse? Why? By not doing anything. The only one that actually made a difference was this person. So when we're talking about empowering bystanders, what we're trying to do is get as many of these folks to come to this side and say, yeah, you hate it too? Come on, come with me. Let's go stick up to that person who's being a bully. Thank you so much, my God. You can put your cards down and have a seat. Thank you so much for doing that. Our awesome actors. Thank you for doing that. that example, that quick role play, when I do that for students, it's the only time. When I present to students, I like to have fun, I like to be silly, and I'm like, I say to them, just for 5 minutes, I want you to be serious. I just want you to be serious. And I get 5 or 6 students that come up, and we do this role play. And I just randomly pick it. I don't know who the students are. I don't know what students are, maybe students who bully or students who are victims. So I just do that, and all of them are students. And I leave that slide up there, and I say, which one are you? When you see a bullying situation, are you, and I don't ask them to actually call it out, but I say, are you the one who's the bully? Or are you the one who likes the bully and says, yeah, that was pretty funny, ha, ha, ha? Are you the one that says, hey, I don't care, it's none of my business, I'm staying out of it? Are you the one that says, oh man, I hate this, I don't know what to do, I'm just not going to do anything? Or are you the one who's actually courageous enough to say, yo, guys, leave them alone? And pretty much this G person might not be able to stick up to all these people, but they might say, come on, Ron, let's just get out of here. Just help me get out of that situation. I hope that that little role play can help you in your head sort of think about the role of a bystander and how we can empower students to maybe just switch this so that there's more on the defender side than there are on the students who bully side. Most of us are in education. When we're in college, we have to take this course called educational psychology, right? In educational psychology, they always talk about this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And it talks about that for you and I, in order for you and I to achieve way at the top personal growth, we need all these basic things, right? These biological needs. We need food, and we need shelter, and we need intimacy, and we need sleep, and we need people around us, right? And then the next notch above that, we need protection. We need security. When you see that safety needs protection and security, I want you to put in there, we need to feel safe at school. So think about that student who comes to school every day and is worried about being picked on, is worried about being bullied, and we want them to do really good at math. We want them to get good scores in English. We want them to try out for the soccer team. We want them to join clubs. We want them to have good relationships. And yet, they're still struggling with that basic safety need. Imagine if you were going to work every day and you knew that when you got to work, there was going to be somebody at work who was going to take a shot at you and just pick on you and tease you and make your day miserable. Wouldn't that be a difficult drive to work every day? Well, some of our students, that's what they deal with every day when they're going to school. They're like, oh no, just like this kid. Well, that was me saying, oh no, not again. What are they going to say this time? Now, how are they going to pick on me? So there is some findings, and it's bullying's more common in elementary school. Before 5th grade, bullying makes children cry, but after 5th grade, it actually changes children. Let's see if this is true. I want you to think about when you were in school, all the adults here, when you were in school, think about the bully, that person who's a bully. I want you to raise your hand if you can still think of their name and picture their face. Raise your hand if you can still picture them. That's most of us. I'm an old guy. I'm 60, and I can still picture his face and his name in my head. You don't think that affects us in life? Here's the other thing that research tells us, that most children do not report bullying to adults. So when you think that a lot of kids are being bullied, maybe, I'm going to tell you it's probably more, because most of the students don't report it. They don't report it because they actually think two things. Either one, that the adults in their life are not going to do anything about it, or the adults in their life are going to make it worse. There's a survey that a lot of schools in Bucks County take. It's called the Pennsylvania Youth Survey. And it shows this data of percentages of students who are being bullied. And about 8% of them are because of abuse or insults or name calling. Sometimes it's because of body image. But I want you to pay attention to that last bullet. 46, almost half of those being bullied feel that the adults in their life, parents and schools, don't do enough to stop it. I wish I had a magic answer and a magic cure to tell you what to do. But I do want you to start paying attention to this and not think, it's just what kids go through. It's not a big deal. Here's the other one that I think is important. 42% of those surveys say they don't even tell anybody. Those who do tell people, they tell a friend. Only 11% actually tell their parents. And I put there why, and I don't know. My guess is because they think that the parents are either going to make it worse or call the other kid's parents and embarrass them or something. I'm not sure. And only 13% of them actually tell a teacher or another adult at school. When we talk about cyberbullying, it's very similar. It's the same three things: empower, balance, repetitive, and to harm. But they have these little things that add a whole element. This anonymity where you can say something mean without people knowing where it comes from. Or accessibility, right? Everybody has a device. Or fear of punishments. My parent or my mom or my dad or my teacher or my principal aren't looking over my shoulder. I can say mean things. There's no bystanders. And this inhibition is a really big one. This ambition means that if I'm going to be mean to you and I say hurtful things to you and I see you getting all sad, I'll be like, all right, I better stop. He's getting all sad. I'm going to stop. Leave him alone. But if I don't see his face and I don't see how it's affecting him, I can be as mean and as hurtful as I want online because I don't have to look at his face when I'm being mean and hurtful. That's what disinhibition refers to. So in conclusion, if your child engages in bullying behavior, don't blame him or her behavior on anyone else. No parent wants to believe that his or kid could be a bully, but denying it will help your kid will keep your son or daughter from getting some help. Let your child know that it's not acceptable, and keep a close eye on it, and get to the root cause of it, of why it's happening. So bullying has always been around, but how we're viewing it is a problem. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great if there was, like, for parents, a checklist? Here's a checklist of things you can do to make give your student a better chance, like with social issues and struggles. Wouldn't it be great if there was such a checklist? Well, there is sort of, and I say that because I have some copies of this paper. If you haven't seen this paper, I bought about maybe 20 or 30 copies, and I want you to grab one. It's referred to as 40 developmental assets. It's based on research, and it really is sort of a checklist. And they're nothing earth-shattering. They're like carrying adults in their life and being connected to some kind of faith base in your organization, in your life, or just real basic stuff that's sort of like, as a parent of somebody between the ages of 12 and 18, it's kind of like, to me, I can actually help my son or my daughter by looking at this and kind of checking some of these things off. So when I'm done talking and when this is all over, just come up and grab one of those. If you've never seen one, I try to give that out to everybody. I give it to both my kids when they became parents. I just think it's a great little paper to hold on to. So thanks a lot for your time today. I think I went exactly 1 hour. I always, before I pass it over, I just want to pause and see if somebody really wants to ask me something. I'm not really here sort of to handle a very specific bullying situation, but sort of big picture stuff. If I can try to give you some support or some guidance, I'd be happy to take a question or two. I was counting up to 7 in my head, and I got to 6 before I gave up. So go for it.
I think one of the things that has helped at least my kids is if I give them some tools on what they can say. Are there things like that available around that are like not, if they're like, well, I don't want them to come to me, but you'd mentioned just taking the person out of the room, but if that's not an option, they can't leave the classroom sometimes, like things they can say that will just help mitigate.
That's a great question. I don't know that I have an exact answer other than if I'm a victim of being bullied, what I want to hear is that somebody supports me, cares, somebody is sticking up for me. I realize that they may not necessarily be able to stop the bully, but I think what to say is, no, you care about this situation, and if you want to let the teacher know, or let the counselor know, or let the social worker know, or let the principal know, come on, I'll go with you because I saw it happen. And I think that's the best that we can do when we're offering support. I don't really think we should put the onus of our kids to solve it, right? It's not fair to have young kids be able to solve it, but I do think we can tell our kids to support one another when it happens. So I'm sorry I don't have a really good answer like actual words, but I do think that supporting one another is what makes a difference in bullying behavior. I really do. Ernie, I'm going to pass it over to you.
First, I want to thank Ron for this presentation. It's very, very powerful from the statistics that he showed to the illustration that was done with all of us actors up here, and the important parts of how we can help create a culture where bullying is not cool, not accepted, and something that we try to combat. So if we go to the next slide, Ron began with a definition of bullying, and I think that's very, very important. He talked about bullying in terms of hitting 3 different marks: intentional, an imbalance of power, and pervasive. And those are the qualifiers for schools and school administration to really categorize something as bullying. It doesn't minimize if there's an incident. Ron talked about a fight. We are going to address that as a school district and as a school system vigorously, immediately, to keep your children safe, to keep our students safe. I can tell you unequivocally that the superintendent and the board of school directors will not tolerate violence, bullying, intimidation, hazing, whatever you want to call it, in these schools. In my role as Director of Student Services, I work very, very closely with building administrators, from principals to assistant principals to teachers to counselors, all with the goal of creating a culture where your kids are in a safe environment and they can learn, which Ron talked about this evening with us. We have a report form on each school's webpage. We also have a report form for bullying on the district webpage. I'm going to ask that we go to that now. And this is the district webpage. Should be at the very top. Picture of Craig Bramble. We go up, it should be at the top, and it says report bullying. So if you click on that report bullying, and again, that's on every school's webpage. It's on the district page. There's a form that you complete. I actually received one the last day or two. And that provides you with information where you can share that story. Inform the school, and an immediate investigation will be launched by the school. We support that at central office. Me, in my role as Director of Student Services, I support the work that the principals and assistant principals do. And anytime a concern is reported, we work with you as parents, guardians, community members to address it. We may not always agree. Again, there's that standard, those 3 things: intentional, pervasive, and an imbalance of power. It doesn't mean that if it doesn't fit that definition, we still won't vigorously pursue it, because that means that we aren't really addressing the needs of your child. And we will certainly do that collectively and with you in partnership. No system is perfect. If you think we need to do something different, we are amenable to feedback from parents and guardians and community members. It's a partnership. Ron started with, and if you look at the name of his presentation, schools and home working together. And that's not just talk. We're very, very serious about that and dedicated to it. We can go back to the slide. Absolutely. An immediate acknowledgement. So once you submit that form, we will respond informing you that we're going to conduct an investigation, and then you'll receive information about an outcome. If we go to the next slide. This is the goal, and this addresses your concern and your question. Meaningful change. Well, what does that mean? Somewhat ambiguous. ambiguous. Meaningful change means that you and we want our students to feel safe and protected. And Ron alluded to this. If they don't have that, if a child doesn't have that, what is prevented? Learning. What gets impacted? Attendance. What else gets impacted? Mental health. So it's cyclical. And that's why it's important that we partner together. And I don't think the focus should be on consequences. There will be, as I just alluded to, the board and the superintendent aren't going to tolerate any form of violence enacted by one student against another. But there are supportive measures we can put in place for both that student, what I'll call the complainant, person who's making the report, and the respondent, meaning the student who has to respond to this allegation of bullying, hazing, harassment, discrimination, whatever that looks like. And again, we partner with not only the person who is the target, but we also partner with that parent because, again, the goal is what? Meaningful change. Meaningful change only happens if it's prevented and it stops. So you can suspend a kid for 10 days. You can expel a kid for 45 days. You can expel a kid till the end of the year, and let's say they return. What happens next? If there's not meaningful change, then it's just a temporary solution. Safety, our number one priority. Learning, equally important. These are the things, and that's the reason why we asked Ron to come here tonight to do this very, very important presentation, which is actually being recorded, and we will post this online at some point next week so that parents and community members that weren't able to participate and be here this evening can see it and watch it, because he shared some very important information that all of us should be aware of. Everyone should know that there's a reporting mechanism within the school to support bullying prevention. And finally, an important component of this is empowerment. What do I mean by empowerment? Giving students and parents a voice to support their kid. And the other part of that is giving people choice, from the student who is victimized to the student who is initiating that inappropriate conduct. Any questions, either Ron or me, as we conclude? Yes, sir. It's situational. It depends on how a situation escalates, what's involved. There are some non-negotiables that what we failed to mention is, depending on the situation, there could be police involvement. If we have bona fide bullying, often police will be involved, and we work with law enforcement and the other parent. But again, our goal, our efforts are geared towards meaningful change, where we have an environment in school where kids don't feel targeted and they feel like they're in a safe learning environment. That's the ultimate goal. Thank you for the question. Any other thoughts, ideas, questions? Yes, ma'am. I think it's a collective effort. I think, for example, when I talked to a principal on my way in this morning, we talked about an incident that was reported on Monday. School team investigates that matter. We talked to both sides, the parent whose child is a victim of that bullying, as well as the parent whose child is initiating that conduct. And so by meaningful change, that's measured over time. It can't be, well, what happened tomorrow? What happened a week from now? That's really about longevity, like a study. So meaningful change really means what kind of culture is occurring in that school, and how many incidents are reported, and do the incidents continue month after month, year after year? If that's not happening, then I think we can all consider that meaningful change, because We have students who feel supported and students who are able to learn because they're in a safe environment. Thank you. Globally. Well, to your point, I think it's a valid one. I think you have to look at the individual student and their circumstances in that family. I think you have to look at the person who is initiating that conduct. And I think you have to look at it globally from a school perspective to say, from school by school in the entire district, what do our statistics look like? And I think one of the outcomes of like a survey like PAYS, where we could have localized data, we can look at our data in the schools, because some of the questions are geared towards school and community safety. And there are actually questions around the topic of bullying. So we can look at that data every other year to see, are we making measurable gains, or are we seeing a trend that's going this way? And we certainly don't want to see that. So I think there's a couple of different ways to look at it. One is an individual analysis, and the second way is looking at it from the whole school and district perspective. Sure. Thank you. Appreciate it. Sir. Yeah, and that's an excellent point. There's 100, that's a guarantee. The level of follow-up, and mostly from school counselors and administrators, and I think that's really a pivotal role of the school counselor, to support both the student who has initiated the behavior as well as the student who's been victimized. So that support goes throughout the school year to ensure that that student feels comfortable. And there's data points you can look at. You can look at grades. Is there a dip in grades? What is their attendance like pre-incident and post-incident? You can do a comparison and an analysis. So I think all of that, if you want to look at the individual level, happens in all of our schools. And again, it really starts with the coordinated effort between the counselor, the home, and the work that the administrator does. Thank you. Yes. Hmm? 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 Excellent point. So I think when you look at a situation like that, while it may started with this, while it may not fit the definition of bullying, it's an incident that the school team will need to investigate, could lead to immediate consequences if it's proven, if it's validated. But I think most important is helping that kid feel like he or she or they are in a space where they feel empowered to tell their story and that the school is going to act. I think Ron, one of his slides talked about or focused on kids don't feel like they're being supported or anything's going to be done by the school or the parent. And I think a lot of kids feel that way. And I think that is challenging for schools, school administrators, school counselors, teachers, because what we want to convey, the message we want to convey to the community, and a part of the reason why the board and Angelo wanted this program to be here is because we are not, one of the things that I think the board and the superintendent have not shied away from are programs like this to directly address and attack, I use that word purposely, attack weaknesses in schools, or perceived weaknesses. So we did a session on QPR, I think it was a month ago, talking about suicide prevention and suicide awareness. We did a program in September on mental health strength for life. 3 weeks from now, we have a program on March 11th focused on internet safety for kids and sexploitation. So all of these things that the board and the superintendent have really launched this year and into the future attack in a very targeted way areas that we can show our community that we are here for your kids, we support your kids, and we are unwavering in that. And I think when you talk to the principals and the work I've done with the principals, the social workers, the counselors, different people within this school system, it's a collaborative effort. And we want to partner with parents to make sure that your kids get the best out of this district and can move on, whether that's college, that's work, that's the military, whatever they aspire to in a safe and supportive environment. And that's why programs like this, and we're fortunate to have Ron, you know, he doesn't work for us, he works for the IU, but he was willing to come out and put on this presentation. And, you know, again, we thank him for that. Any other thoughts? Excellent questions, excellent ideas. And I think this is, I wish more people were here. But again, we are recording this and we will post it. Oh, okay, yeah. Grab, I'm gonna take one. So please come up, grab one of these. This program of this nature, I think we can anticipate that it will occur annually. Ron at some point will retire one day, maybe 10 years from now. But we will keep this message alive. Yes, ma'am. Not to my knowledge. I've only been here for a year, but not, I don't think so. Have you done an assembly program for kids in this, not at this school? Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. All right, well, Mr. Renner, yes, sir. I'll give him the mic. He's been waiting for this.
We just want everyone to be aware that in all three middle schools, we do have a NOVA program that comes in. some of our high schoolers actually present it to our 7th graders. And we've had that for the last 3 years, I believe, something like that. So we do have a program come in, Upstanders is what it's called, coming in and talking about what that means to be an upstander.
All right, again, as we close, I want to thank Ron Roland for his time here and expertise. Thank you very much.